Hey everyone, I'm Majiin and welcome in to World Tour Weekly, your one-stop shop for all competitive Flesh and Blood news. With the ProQuest Yokohama meta shifting and a couple of really cool events on the horizon, we have quite an exciting show today. Let's get into it. I mentioned that the meta for ProQuest Yokohama has been changing a little bit since last week, and I figured that's probably the best place to start, so let's go over it in today's Metagame Minute. Before we get into this week's results, I want to look at last week's results once again so that we can properly compare. It's pretty expected that Gravy Bones, Syndra, and Verdance will be top finishers, and that's exactly what happened. Florian and other decks weren't too far behind them though. One of the bigger surprises to me this meta has been that KO hasn't been performing quite as well as I expected him to, considering all the new tools that he got in the Super Slam set. Cards like Show of Strength and Reckless Stampede add a little bit more oomph to a deck that was already considered to be decently powerful, if maybe a little bit behind the top dogs. In the first week, he just did kind of okay. With only 5 wins, he was definitely a step behind the meta decks. Now, when we switch over to this week's results, he did much better and was tied with Gravy Bones and Acilio for third most wins. Verdance won 21% of ProQuest, making her our highest finishing hero of the week, and Syndra finished right behind her with 19% of the wins. Gravy Bones dropping pretty significantly in win rate this week is very interesting, considering he has maybe the strongest matchup of the field into Verdance. I would also be surprised if he wasn't at least decently represented. I have a feeling we will see him creeping back up in win rate because what he does is so intrinsically powerful, but we will have to check back in next week to see for sure. It is a little bit different this season though, because players who have already won their ProQuest are no longer allowed to compete in them. Since Gravy Bones was the winningest deck in week 1, it's entirely possible that he saw such a large drop in wins simply because the Gravy Bones players already won. Moving on from Classic Constructed, we also have some data from the Living Legend events this last weekend, where Viserai won a quarter of the total events. It was a very even spread after that though, with Starvo, Briar, Aurora, Dash.io, Kano, and Chain all getting an equal share. I have to imagine that out of the more popular Runeblades like Viserai, Chain, and Briar, Warmongers being unrestricted probably hurts Viserai the least. The OG Runeblade can switch up his game plan and start stacking up rune chance if he thinks he's going to be disrupted, and then firing with a pop-off Skeleta turn once he thinks the coast is clear. This ability he has to shift from aggressive to setup and back to aggressive makes it really hard to pin him down with any one strategy. I expect to continue to see good things from Viserai in the remainder of the ProQuest season. Okay, now that we have a grasp on how the meta is shifting, I wanted to take a second and go over a couple of cards that have been seeing more and more play lately in today's Card of the Week. Obviously, when I usually do this segment, I only talk about one card of the week, but today I'm going to talk about 3. All the cards that I've chosen have been seeing more play recently, especially in the ProQuest season, and I thought that they were interesting enough to be highlighted. The first one is Channel the Millennium Tree. This card was heavily featured in super early Verdance builds, but players started to move away from it around the time of US Nationals this year. At that point, the deck was basically efficient attacks, solid defense reactions, a little bit of life gain, and 1 Stormstrider's turn. Now that we have both Burn Bear and Light Up the Leaves, the extra arcane damage gained from Channel the Millennium Tree has players looking into the card again. While it isn't at its best against the faster decks of the format like Syndra, it does make things incredibly awkward for any of the slower matchups, like when playing against Earth Heroes. I included this card on the list mostly because I'm a big Verdance enjoyer, and it makes me happy to see her move more towards arcane damage. Makes her feel more wizardy. The second card is mostly for Living Legend purposes, although I have seen it pop up in a couple of Classic Constructed deck lists. That card is Base of the Mountain. It wasn't immediately obvious to me what this card was really for, but after testing a bunch against Starvo and Living Legend, it shows its worth pretty quickly. It essentially lets you get around Dominate using its ability 1 time per game. Usually players will use this to stop an on-hit that they otherwise wouldn't be able to defend against. Heroes that use Dominate also tend to send pretty large attacks, letting you get quite a lot of value from the second line of text on the card. It's pretty standard for players to get at least 3 value when using these boots, and that's not even counting the value gained from stopping an on-hit. Expect to see a lot of this card in the Living Legend portion of the World Championships. The final card is Hunter or Hunted. Shout out to Taylor Morrow for pushing this card and its hero, Arachne Huntsman, more into the mainstream. If you like having good cards in your deck, sucks to suck, because Arachne might banish them all before you get to use a single one. If you haven't played against this card, I can't explain the stress that you feel when your opponent does play it against you. Is it going to hit some random blue you don't need? Is it going to hit your best card? You never know, and that's pretty terrifying. I'm not saying this card is single-handedly going to make Huntsman a competitive deck, but it does definitely give it quite a bit of juice. Have any of you seen cards popping up recently that surprised you? Let me know in the comments. Okay, now that we've talked about the events of the last couple of weeks, it's time to talk about the events of the weeks to come. First up is obviously another weekend of ProQuest Yokohama tournaments. So if you wanted to take your shot at a Pro Tour invite and quite a few fantastic prizes, make sure you head out to your local game store and give it a shot. After seeing both the Swing Big and Overcrowded promo in person, I highly recommend trying to get your hands on some. Also coming up this weekend is the Battle Hardened Houston live stream. The Battle Hardened is going to be in the Living Legend format, so if you're looking for an edge in your local Living Legend ProQuest, or hoping to get some metagame data to help you out at Worlds, this is going to be the best place to get that info. Make sure you tune in. Also, make sure not to miss out on the anniversary live stream on the Fab YouTube channel celebrating 6 years of Flesh and Blood. That'll be at 5 p.m. Eastern on October 19th, and I've heard if you're interested in Silver Age, you should definitely tune in. And of course, every day we get closer and closer to this year's World Championships in Philadelphia on November 13th. That's all I got for this episode. I'm Majiin, and I'll see you next time on World Tour Weekly.